This video is a demonstration of how I make Spätzle using a Spätzle board and a knife. The equipment you need is a Spätzle board like this one. I made this out of some maple that I had lying around. You also need a knife with a long straight edge. Doesn't have to be sharp. This one is a cake frosting spatula. And you need something to dip the Spätzle out of the boiling water after they have cooked. The recipe is fairly simple. You start with 2 eggs. I assume you know how to crack eggs, so I won't show you that part. You need 1/2 cup of water right out of the tap. And a dash of salt, just a dash. And feel free to spill some of it like I did. That's to taste. Then you take a whisk or a spoon or something like that and you whip up the liquid ingredients until you get them thoroughly mixed. Whip them up really nice and get them nicely mixed together. And once that's done, we will add the flour. It takes 1 1/2 cups of flour. I start out with all-purpose flour. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so that's 1/2 of a cup. That is 2/2 of a cup. And then I add in 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour just to keep it a little bit more interesting. That is our 1 1/2 cups of flour. And then to add something a little extra, I put in some ground flaxseed, which is supposed to be really good for you, and it makes it nice and looks wholesome. We put in a tablespoon of the flaxseed meal, and that's the dry ingredients. Take a spatula of some kind, we mix it up. We have to get these ingredients all mixed together into a pasta dough. We're looking for a consistency that is very wet, almost a batter, but a little bit drier than a batter. So we just keep mixing until we've got all of this recipe mixed together in the bowl. Now the test I use for the consistency is to tip the bowl up to see if the pasta dough will flow. If it stands up under its own weight, it's too dry. You can see it's not moving when I tilt the bowl. So I'm going to add some water to it to make it a little bit wetter. One tablespoon of water, and then we mix it again. Keep stirring until the water is completely mixed into the pasta dough. And then we will test it again to see how we're doing. I hold the bowl up again to see if the dough will flow. You can see it's moving now. It's not as dry. It won't stand up under its own weight like it did before. So we're almost there. You're looking for it to flow, but not flow out of the bowl. But it's still a little dry, so I think I'll add a little bit more water. And that's a teaspoon of water. Put in a teaspoon of water, and we'll mix it again. After we get these ingredients all mixed in again, we will give it another test to see how we're doing on the consistency of the dough. Hold the bowl up. You can see now that it's flowing down. It does not stand up under its own weight, but it's not flowing out of the bowl. If it pours out of the bowl, it's too wet and you have to add flour. This looks about right. So I think we'll go with that. Next, we put on a pot of water to boil. You need a large pot, such as this Dutch oven, because you need a large opening in order to put the spätzle board in the water. The water is used to lubricate the spätzle as you slice it. So we turn it up to high and wait for the water to boil. We are back and the water is boiling. So I turn it down to about 5.5 on my stove because I want a simmer. I don't want it a rolling boil. Take the spätzle board and dip it into the water and spread the water all over the board. You want to get the board very wet because that lubricates the board and keeps the spätzle dough from sticking to it as we slice it into the water. I'm using a knife to spread the water over the board. Take some of the dough and put it on the board, just like that. Take the knife and I spread it thinly on the board. I'm spreading it about an eighth of an inch thick. Doesn't have to be too thin. Take the knife and slice the dough into the water. Notice that I continue to dip the board into the water after every 2 or 3 slices, and that keeps the board lubricated. Once that batch is done, I add another batch to the board. Spread it out thin on the board. Make sure the board is wet. And then slice it in. Always dipping the board in the water between 2 or 3 of the slices. That keeps everything neat. And we keep doing this until there are quite a few spätzle noodles in the pot cooking. And now we cook them. The common wisdom says that the spätzle is done when it floats, but I cook it a minute or 2 longer than that to make sure that the eggs are cooked. I'm not sure that everything is cooked after it floats because that happens so fast. And you can see the spätzle noodles popping up as they cook. So we'll just let this go for a minute or 2 and stir them up. Make sure they're all getting cooked. Once they are done, take your spoon and we will dip the cooked noodles out of the pot and put them in a bowl. Well, that looks pretty good. I think they're done. So I'm dipping them out, putting them into a bowl, and this batch is cooked. With the recipe that I have shown you, I usually get about 3 of these batches out of the batch of dough that I made. And there's Spätzle right there. Okay, I have adjusted the lighting on the stove so that you can see what I'm doing a little better. I've put some dough on the board. I'm spreading it out thinly across the board. Dip it in the water. Slice it into the water. Every 2 or 3 slices, get it wet again so that the dough doesn't stick to the board. You can see that sometimes it's easier if I pull the board out from under the knife rather than moving the knife along the board. This makes it a little easier to handle over the hot pot. Load up the board again. We'll do another one. And there you go. That's another batch. I do multiple batches of these because I don't want to overcook the first ones in order to cook the last ones in sufficiently. So I break it up. I do a batch at a time. Let them cook for a few minutes. I got my bowl out. Looks like the Spätzles are done. And I just simply take them out, put them in the bowl. And there you go. There's a bowl of Spätzle, all ready to saute into something nice. Well, that's it. Spätzle, using a Spätzle board and a knife. Thanks for watching.